Manga, Japan's massive comic industry. The history of manga goes back to the ancient times, and Japan has a long tradition of visual text. For example, Lady Murasaki wrote the tale of Genji in the early 11th century. Millions of different manga series have been created and sold, which many have been translated and made into anime. Today, manga is one of Japan's most important cultural exports. Now there's quite a few different manga magazines, but today I'm talking about the best-selling one, Shonen Jump. Weekly Shonen Jump, or Shonen Jump, or even just Jump, is a manga magazine targeted at teenage boys. Hence the term shonen, which means a young boy in Japanese. It was actually made with the intent to combat a shoujo book, a young girls magazine, hence the term shoujo is Japanese for young girl. While today there are many different series in Shonen Jump that have female readers, the focus still remains on boys. And through the years you can see how masculinity is portrayed in Japan through manga. In 1968, the first ever edition of Shonen Jump was published with 3 manga series in it. Kujira Daigo, a kind-hearted comedy series about the joy of learning, Chichi no Tamashi, a sports series about baseball, and Harenchi Gakuen, a comedy series revolving around the elementary school where boys peep on girls and girls show off what's underneath their skirts. Along with a few other one-shot titles that did not gain any traction in this issue and were dropped. While Harenchi Gakuen had no sexual content, it was a breakout hit for the readers and also a breakout concern for parents and teachers. So at the start, we can see that Shonen Jump was comprised of a lot of comedy series and sports-based titles. Some might say these were typical male interests, but here come the 70s.
Early 1970s, they had series sticking around from the early days like Chichi no Tamashi and Harenchi Gakuen. But now Jump had a bit of a struggle finding both new series with a lot starting and ending within the same year. But with the number of new series being thrown towards their audience, plenty did eventually succeed. And with that, new manga were making their debut in the magazine. Now, we have some manga that are quite similar to what was in the magazine at the start. For example, we have Astro Kyudon, another baseball-based story where 9 players with baseball-shaped birthmarks each have unique powers that complement the other to facilitate their rise to becoming the world's greatest baseball team. We also have the Konjugairu, a comedy series about a frog that gets squished by a boy and then magically gets imprinted on his shirt and proceeds to give him life advice. And lastly, we have Toilet Hakase, another controversial comedy manga series that was edgy at the time. It was all about Dr. Toilet. It obviously had a lot of toilet humor, as some parents would say. And now we get into some more newer territory with Hochonin Ajihe. It was one of the first cooking manga, all about cooking and such. And next we have Koya no Shonen Isamu, a country western movie style manga. And here you can see as time progresses, manga and Jump slowly start to change views on masculinity in Japan as, men cooking starts to become more normalized as well as Western influence entering the country. But the American influence on manga is soon about to explode.
The 1980s, where shonen became a genre in manga. Shonen was just a loose term for basically boys' comics, but this decade was the advent of numerous series that defined both the magazine as well as what shonen is for years to come. Shonen heroes are often underdogs, or at best, average guys who have a special ability or destiny, much like Harry Potter. Here's where shonen got synonymous with battle. Whether it be post-apocalyptic heroes who can kill people by attacking their organs somehow, to giant energy beams people can somehow generate, to even psychic representations of one's spirits duking it out with insane varying abilities. And most importantly, the giant muscles that make every bodybuilder feel small. First off, we got Fist of the North Star, a post-apocalyptic world where gangs rule and the government's practically non-existent.
and justice has disappeared. Our hero Kenshiro wields the Fist of the North Star, the world's most powerful martial arts, as he tries to get revenge and deliver justice to this world. JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. Here, generations of people in the Joestar family, all who happen to have the nickname JoJo, battle against supernatural abilities of others who they come across. These fights are so outrageous that you can't help but think how bizarre they are. And probably the most essential manga to kickstart how manga in the future were to be written like is Dragon Ball. Our protagonist Goku goes on a search for the 7 Dragon Balls that can grant any wish. And during his travels, he fights numerous enemies, and while the series started off as a more comedic manga, it slowly transitioned into a martial arts-based manga, as Goku grows stronger and more powerful enemies appear. It popularized tournament arcs that would become a staple in practically most shonen today, as well as transformations, with its most iconic transformation of Super Saiyan that Goku gains as he gets stronger. Here, masculinity quite heavily leans on extreme and fit men with a sense of justice and want to save others, or in some cases just test their limits. These were titans of the 80s manga industry, all reaching hundreds of chapters and would soon see their influence on the newly defined genre of shonen.
Goku's the strongest.
90s. High off the muscular era of the 80s, Dragon Ball and JoJo's Bizarre Adventure were still being serialized. Since they were on a steady climb up the popularity ladder, many new manga were being developed with these series in mind. With the muscular men-obsessed era of the 80s was now over, Shonen had to really keep growing as a genre, with titles in Shonen Jump being incredibly diverse. There's a bunch of new battle manga on the scene, like Yu Yu Hakusho, about a delinquent who becomes an underworld detective, as well as by the same author, Togashi, Hunter x Hunter, which is about a young boy who becomes a hunter to find his dad, a fellow hunter. There are plenty of sports titles as well, like the infamous Slam Dunk that popularized basketball in Japan at the same time. And the 90s was filled with a lot more average body types in manga, as well as aging down main characters to be around teenagers or even younger, like in the case of Hunter x Hunter. But an important subset of shonen manga made their debut in Jump here, non-battle battle manga. Basically, it's when the characters have fights, but instead of punching each other, they play through games, like in Yu-Gi-Oh! Or in Hikaru no Go, they play the Japanese strategy game Go. But all these series did not reach the heights that Dragon Ball set until the coming of the Big Three. Now, in the late 90s, the manga industry changed, with the Big Three taking Shonen Jump by storm. The Big Three refers to the 3 most popular weekly series from Shonen Jump magazine. In 1999, Masashi Kishimoto's Naruto began serialization. Naruto is a young boy who is shunned by his village, but strives to become a great shinobi and eventually become the leader of his village, the Hokage. But he has a powerful 9-tailed fox spirit sealed within him. Tite Kubo's Bleach began serialization in 2001. It's about a teenager named Ichigo who can see ghosts, and one day he gets attacked by spirits who fail to pass on and gains the powers of a soul reaper. And finally, we have Eiichiro Oda's One Piece. In 1997, a goofy teen named Monkey D. Luffy accidentally ate a fruit that turned his body into rubber and sets out to the Grand Line, the most dangerous sea in the world, to find the great treasure known as the One Piece and become the king of the pirates. These 3 series broke the mold of Dragon Ball and set in stone for what would now be how shonen manga was written in the 21st century. These series all had massive runs in Weekly Shonen Jump and were in constant battle for the top spot in the magazine. Naruto ran from 1999 to 2014 with a total of 700 chapters that was compiled into 72 volumes. Bleach ran from 2001 to 2016 with 686 chapters and a total of 74 volumes. And lastly, One Piece, the massive juggernaut of Shonen Jump that started in 1997 and is still going on to this day, with currently 1,048 chapters at the time of recording and 102 volumes. This series continues to break new ground and reach new heights as it progresses and remains at the top of the magazine to this day. But why were these three series so popular? Well, it's not because Naruto was a clumsy orange ninja, or because Ichigo was a cool Grim Reaper-like figure that saved people and ghosts. And it wasn't because Luffy was a pirate made out of rubber. They all had a sense of teenage rebellion that started to really take form in not just Japan, but the world. Naruto was an outcast from his own village for reasons he couldn't help. Ichigo from Bleach had to deal with unfair rules of a society of soul reapers. And One Piece's own Luffy, a pirate who was, well, I mean, he's a pirate. Governments don't like pirates. I mean, it started to show that men not only wanted to be stronger, but also had feelings. They would fight for their friends, cry for those that they lost, well up with anger against those who hurt others, and they had effects on those around him and were affected by the people around them. These characters were a lot like the kids reading these stories. While they had fictional powers, their emotions were the real similarities. This redefining of masculinity in Shonen Jump set a precedent for the next generation of mangaka to strive to outdo these titans with new, innovative series. Well, now we're going to talk about the post-Big Three era. During said era, there were plenty of series doing well in the magazine, but just not to the level of them. Like, we have Death Note, a non-battle manga where a teenager gets a notebook that you can kill anyone with by just writing their names in it. There's Gintama, a comedy manga that would parody literally the whole manga industry, as well as series like JoJo's Bizarre Adventure still sticking around. While the author does go on hiatus a lot in between story arcs, so it's never a continuous flow of popularity. But towards the end of the Big Three, plenty of new series would spawn in weekly Shonen Jump. We got tons of new stuff like rom-coms, high school volleyball with high Q, absurd comedy like in The Disastrous Life of Psycho K. We got middle school kids trying to kill their octopus teacher that blew up the moon in Assassination Classroom. High school's about cooking competitions and food wars. My Hero Academia's own superhero high school, and yes, that is just the plot to the Disney Channel movie Sky High, but, moving on. We got Magic Knights and Black Clover, Demon Slayers. Yeah, even a sequel to Naruto, The Big Three, about his son Boruto. There's another series about kids raised as livestock for demons. There's a rom-com about a boy tutoring people, a teenager fighting with science to revive the world of all humans that were turned to stone, a special high school for fighting evil spirits, a guy whose limbs can turn into chainsaws, and undead unluck. It's literally about a zombie and a girl who's really unlucky. There's even Burn the Witch, a spin-off of Bleach, Blue Box, another rom-com, and PPPPPP. It's about a group of septuplets who play the piano. And of course, there is One Piece. It's in its 25th year of serialization. All those series I just listed are either still running or stuck around at least for the long term, not to mention hundreds of other smaller series, like from authors that made an attempt to get serialized, but the audience just didn't pick it, or maybe they just didn't find the right idea. But with this diverse of a catalog of series and Shonen Jump, it's hard to pin down all the different takes on masculinity characters have now. And few of these even have female leads, so take what you may with that. Shonen Jump has evolved with the times, and so has the view of masculinity within each of their stories.